Okay, so now we are going to see about normal distribution and the Z-test. Okay, consider a college. The examination results are out. The headmaster likes to know how his students have fared. So what he does, he plots a graph with the marks of each student on the x-axis and how many students have scored that mark on the y-axis. Okay, once he has plotted, he sees that the graph looks like this shape. So he observes that out of 500 marks, a handful of students have scored above 450, while another handful have scored less than 300. And the rest of the students, the majority of the students, have scored in the range 300 to 450, with even a majority of them being clustered around 380 to 420 marks. He also observes that the mean of the class, the average score of the class is 400. Okay, so this sort of distribution is called a normal distribution. It is also known as a bell curve. You'll be familiar with this term probably. Probably people working in IT might be familiar with this terminology. So where 15% of the population have to be given bottom rating, another 15% only can be given top rating. The rest 70% will be given an in-between rating. So this called a bell curve, again, or known as a normal distribution. Okay, so to define what is a normal distribution, it is an arrangement of a data set in which most values cluster in the middle of the range and the rest taper off symmetrically towards either extreme. Yeah. Now, data near the mean are more frequent in occurrence than the ones far from the mean. This kind of distribution occurs normally in many situations. In day-to-day life, you can see many distributions following this normal distribution. So, hence, that is why it is also known as a normal distribution. Meaning, it is the one which is frequently observed in day-to-day life. Okay. Now, take a look at this figure. Both of these are normal distributions with an identical mean of 0. The blue distribution has a lower standard deviation than the orange one. So I hope you know what is standard deviation. It means how far the data is spread away from the mean. Yeah, so the blue one has a lower standard deviation. Now, the world of machine learning itself revolves around normal distribution. Any variable that exhibits a normal distribution can be forecast with high degree of accuracy. In fact, certain algorithms assume the distribution to be normal in order to provide a forecast. Okay, what makes things simple about a normal distribution? It's because if you just have the mean and standard deviation, you can completely understand the data behind a normal distribution. How is it so? So here it is, the empirical rule. The empirical rule states for a normal distribution, 68% of the data falls within one standard deviation from the mean. 93% of the data falls within two standard deviations from the mean. 99.7 is almost all of the data falls within 3 standard deviations from the mean. Okay, so every value in a normal distribution can be represented by an equivalent, what we call z-score. Okay, so z-score denotes the number of standard deviations by which a value is above or below the mean. Okay, this is the formula by which it is calculated. A simple formula. Z equal to x minus mu by sigma. So x is the value which you want to convert to the equivalent z-score. Mu is the mean. Sigma is the standard deviation. Okay, so if I say z equal to 2, it means this particular value of x is 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So it is either greater or lesser than the mean by 2 standard deviations. That is the meaning of your z-score. Okay. So the z-score has 2 important applications in machine learning. First thing, it is used to identify outliers. I hope you know what is meant by an outlier. Okay, data, outlier is a data point which is very much different in value from the rest of the data. So how can I identify an outlier using z-score? So I know that most of my data falls within 3 standard deviations from the mean. So anything falling outside 3 standard deviations, I can very well classify it as an outlier. So you would know. So only 0.3% of the values fall outside the 3 standard deviations. So we could treat this as outliers. Okay, the second application, it is used to standardize different measures for comparison. To take an example, there is a variable A which ranges from 1 to 99, say. There is a variable B which ranges from 1 to 10,000. Okay, I want to compare these two variables. I cannot compare these two straight away because they are of a different scale. So what I do is I convert both these variables to their equivalent Z scores. And if I remove the outliers as well, the values for both these variables will fall between -3 and +3. So we have brought both the variables to the same scale. Okay, just to take another example, say you have done your 10th class, so you have scored some marks. So your 10th class was for 500 marks. You have scored 450 out of 500. Your 12th class marks is out of 1200. You have scored 1000 out of 1200. So in which exam have you done better? If I ask you, straight away comparing the percentage of both marks may not give the accurate picture. Instead, what we can do is you take the Z score. Suppose all this is assuming you know the average mark. You know the average mark of all students in 10th standard, average to a mark of all students in 12th standard. If you know the average, you can compute the Z score and see what is your Z score in comparison to the mean. Meaning how many standard deviations you are away from the mean. You compute this for your 10th score, you compute this for your 12th score, you see which is higher. So that will give you the true picture of whether you have performed better in 10th or better in 12th, rather than comparing the percentage. Okay, you will see going forward how this is useful in machine learning. Okay, now we'll move on. We'll try to understand how this Z score is calculated. What is the application of the Z score? Yeah, a small example here. Okay, look at this problem. Suppose that a contaminant in samples from a city's water supply has a mean of 500 parts per million and a standard deviation of 100 parts per million. Okay, so for a normal distribution, this is all you need to know. What is the mean? What is the standard deviation? We have this. So what is the probability that bacteria in a randomly selected water sample will be? So there are 3 parts to this problem. We'll look at the first part. What is the probability that the bacteria will be less than 600 parts per million? So that is the question. Okay, look at this slide again. So here 500 is the mean for this problem. So from this graph you can see probability of any sample having less than 500 parts per million is 0.5 and greater than 500 parts per million is 0.5. The distribution is equally split across the mean. So for probability to be less than 600, it will definitely be greater than 0.5. That much I hope you will be able to see from this. Okay. Now to calculate this, Excel has a simple formula. You just use this formula. Normal dot distribution, norm dot dist of x comma mean comma standard deviation comma cumulative. Okay, so x is the value for which you are checking. So it's 600, 500 is my mean, 100 is my standard deviation. So cumulative equal to false indicates probability of the value being exactly 600. So we are not interested in that. We want to know value being less than 600. So you choose cumulative equal to true. Okay, so you get 84% chance that a random sample will have less than 600 parts per million of contaminant. Okay, note from the below formula, there is a normal dot inverse function, inverse formula, which will give you the x value if you key in the probability. Just a reverse of what we have seen now. So if I key in norm dot inv of 0.8413, it gives you back 600. Okay, I hope this example is clear. So I'll leave it to you to work out the other 2 examples. So more than 600 parts per million between 400 and 600 parts per million. So just give some thought and try to work this out. Anyway, I'll be sharing the Excel sheet with you. You can verify your results. Okay. So next one, any value can be converted to its equivalent z-score by using this formula, standardize. Okay, you can take a look at this. So now I am converting 600 to its equivalent z-score. I get z equal to 1. So it means the value of 600 is 1 standard deviation away from the mean. That is the inference. Okay, so what I can say now is probability of x being less than 600 is the same as probability of z being less than 1 for this problem. Okay, so if you have only the z scores in place of the actual values, so in place of norm.dist formula, you use norm.s.dist to calculate the probability. So you can very well see the probability of z less than 1 is also 84% in this case. So when I convert all the x values to the equivalent z score, the distribution so formed is called a standard normal distribution. The mean of the standard normal distribution will be 0. It means probability of z being less than 0 is 0.5 and z being greater than 0 is also 0.5. Okay. Another thing you can observe is probability of z being less than 1.64 is 0.95. This implies probability of z being greater than 1.64 is 0.05. So the 0.05 is called a p-value or significance level. Okay, if significance level is 0.05, it means our confidence level is 95%. Okay, so these are your two new terminologies which you need to take note of here. Significance level and confidence level. Significance level or p-value 0.05 or confidence level 95%. So this is considered the standard for statistical significance. Okay, moving on. So I'll be showing you an example problem to help you understand this better. So for now, you can see that probability of z being less than 1.64 is 0.95, 95%. Okay, similarly, probability of z being less than 1.96 is 0.975. This implies probability of z being greater than 1.96 is 0.025. So this is the p-value for this case. Okay, similar to this, probability of z being less than minus 1.96 is also 0.025. Okay, take these two together now. Z greater than 1.96 is 0.025. Z less than minus 1.96 is 0.025. Sum these two up, you will get 0.5. So exclude this. I'm sorry, sum these two, you will get 0.05. So exclude these. You can see that the probability of minus 1.96 less than z less than 1.96 is 0.95. That is the probability of z value falling between minus 1.96 and plus 1.96 is 0.95. So you can compare these two. The probability of z being less than 1.64 is also 95%, or the probability of z falling between minus 1.96 and plus 1.96 is also 95%. So the first one is used for a one-tailed test, the second one is used for a two-tailed test. I'll show an example for both one-tailed test and two-tailed test. Yeah. Now let's go to the example. Okay, take an organization. The average salary of the employees in the organization is, say, rupees 50,000 per month. Okay, a new employee comes in. He's being offered a salary of rupees 60,000. So, can you say there is no statistically significant difference between the average salary of the organization and the salary of new employees based on this one employee? So, you need to understand the question more thoroughly here. So the average salary is 50,000. One new employee comes in with a salary 60,000. Based on this, can I straight away say all new employees are offered a greater salary than the ones currently present in the organization? Or is it just a random chance that this one employee has got a higher salary? Meaning, is the fact that this one employee has got a higher salary statistically significant? That is what we would need to measure here. Okay, so now when I say significantly different, it could be that the new employee either has a higher salary or a significantly lower salary than the mean. So I have given an example of a new employee coming in with salary 60,000. It could very well be 40,000. So I want to just know if the new employee salary is significantly different from that of the mean salary of the organization. So in this case, I choose a two-tailed test. So as you saw above, for a two-tailed test, if the Z value falls between minus 1.96 and plus 1.96, we can be 95% certain that there is no statistically significant difference between the mean and the new employee's salary. So based on one sample, we are going to determine for all new employees, can I conclude whether there is a statistically significant difference? So I compute the Z-score for this 60,000. If it falls between minus 1.96 and plus 1.96, I conclude that there is no statistically significant difference between the mean and new employee's salary. Okay, now I want to be certain. So can I be certain that the new employees get a greater salary than the mean salary based on the sample? So earlier we saw, do the new employees, the salary of the new employees, are they significantly different from the mean? Now I am explicitly stating, is it significantly greater than the mean? So for this you would use a single tail test. So for single tail test, I showed you above, if Z value is greater than 1.64, not 1.96 for this case, Z value is greater than 1.64, we are 95% confident that new employees get a higher salary than the mean. That's it. This is how you evaluate. So a new employee comes in. Say I have taken an example of one new employee coming in. It could probably be, you have the data for 10 new employees. You take the mean of those 10, compare that mean with the existing organizational mean. You find a significant difference. Meaning the Z score of the new employees is greater than 1.64. You are 95% confident that new employees get a higher salary than the mean. So as I said earlier, this 95% is a kind of standard we use in statistical computation. It could very well be 97% or 90%. So based on that, your Z score benchmark is going to vary. Okay, so for 95%, these are the numbers: 1.64 for a one-tail test and 1.96 for a two-tail test, which you obtained by using the norm.dist formula in using Excel. Yeah. So this is it about Z scores and Z test. This may be difficult for you, I understand, to wrap your head around in just one session. You can spend some time on this. I'll share the Excel sheet as well. It's really not necessary for you to solve many problems relating to this. You just need to understand what is the Z value, what is the significance level, what are P values, what is the confidence level. So this will help you to understand going forward the confidence level of machine learning models which you're going to create.